In a distant rural village, where the golden sun kissed the green fields and the crystal-clear river wound through majestic mountains, faith and simplicity reigned in harmony. It was in this picturesque setting, blessed by gentle rains and enveloped by the songs of birds, that a farmer would face his greatest challenge, a choice between his soul and earthly fortune. Peter emerged as a farmer with a generous soul. His sun-baked skin told stories of daily toil. His calloused hands revealed more than mere labor. They symbolized resilience and love for the land. A simple man, yet a holder of deep wisdom, Peter saw beyond appearances, understanding that true wealth transcended material possessions and lay in community bonds and connections with nature. Peter's life flowed in a harmonious rhythm, deeply connected to the essence of the earth. Each dawn found him in the fields, sowing and cultivating with a love that went beyond mere survival. His routine was marked by tireless work, but it was full of meaning, where every movement of his calloused hands represented more than labor. It was an intimate dialogue with nature. At sunrise, Peter began his tasks with a silent prayer, thanking for the blessing of another day. His small plot, inherited from his parents, produced enough to feed his family and share with neighbors in times of need. He planted beans, corn, and vegetables, using the traditional techniques learned from his father and grandfather, honoring the natural cycles and ancestral secrets of the land. The community around Peter was like a big family. During harvest times, everyone came together to work side by side, exchanging experiences, stories, and food. The children played among the fields, learning early the value of collective work and generosity. Peter was recognized as a wise man, always willing to help, sharing his knowledge and resources with those in need. His wife, Mary, complemented this harmonious existence. Together they raised 3 small children, teaching them principles of respect, hard work, and solidarity. In the evenings, they gathered around a simple fire, where they shared stories of the day, hopes for the future, and lessons learned along their daily journey. The challenges were not few. Occasional droughts, inclement weather, and the uncertainty of the harvest constantly tested Peter's resilience, but his unwavering faith and deep connection with the community sustained him. He believed that true wealth was not in material goods, but in the ability to overcome adversity together, in the love shared, and in the hope that always reborn, like seeds sprouting even in seemingly barren lands. Thus flowed Peter's life, simple, yet profoundly meaningful. A man who found joy in small gestures, strength in community, and purpose in his sacred connection to the land and the people around him. Peter's tranquil routine was brutally interrupted by the arrival of an unrelenting drought that descended upon the region, transforming the green and fertile landscape into an arid and desolate scene. The once generous fields, which had been a source of life and sustenance for the community, began to wither under the harsh sun, their crops wilting like fading hopes. The water scarcity reached alarming proportions. The streams that once meandered through the region reduced to thin, almost invisible threads, and the once moist and generous land became a cracked mosaic of dried clay. The animals, first to feel the impacts of the drought, wandered with vacant looks, desperately searching for any trace of moisture. Peter watched this transformation with a mixture of anguish and helplessness. His calloused hands, once capable of making the land produce life, now seemed fragile against the magnitude of the natural disaster. Each morning, he walked through the fields, observing the wilted crops and feeling the weight of the responsibility to feed his family and help the community. The concern extended beyond his own needs. Peter knew that the drought threatened not only his survival, but that of all the villagers. Entire families began to face the prospect of hunger, and despair started to settle in the weary eyes of the residents. In community meetings, the heavy silence revealed the collective fear. Men and women exchanged glances filled with uncertainty, discussing increasingly desperate strategies for survival. Some families were already contemplating leaving the village, while others clung to the hope of a miraculous rain. Peter, known for his wisdom and resilience, had become a pillar of support for many. Even without concrete answers, his calm presence and ability to keep hope alive comforted those who felt lost. He believed that unity and faith would be the only tools capable of overcoming that critical moment. The drought represented more than a mere climatic adversity. It was an existential challenge that tested the community's limits, its capacity for resistance and solidarity. Peter felt that something extraordinary was about to happen. not realizing that his trial would be much deeper than merely surviving the dry spell. In the eyes of the farmer, determination and an almost spiritual unease intertwined. He knew that the most challenging moments in life often brought the greatest lessons, and he was ready to face whatever fate had in store for him, maintaining his unwavering faith in divine providence and the power of human communion. At the exact moment when desolation seemed to engulf the village, a strange traveler emerged from the shadows of the dried fields. His peculiar figure contrasted with the harshness of the environment. Dressed in dark attire that seemed to absorb the very light, Belphegor approached Peter with an enigmatic smile that carried promises and mysteries. The stranger's eyes shone with a supernatural intensity, penetrating the farmer's soul as if he could rummage through every thought, every hope, and every fear hidden within. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft like a whisper, yet heavy, like destiny itself. "Peter," he said, knowing the farmer's name without ever having been introduced, "I observe your daily struggle against the drought that ravages your land." The words were like poisoned honey, sweet and seductive, carrying a proposal that could completely alter the fate of this man and his community. Belphegor then revealed an offer that would make anyone hesitate: infinite fertility for the fields, abundant wealth, and an immediate end to the scarcity tormenting the village. In exchange, Peter would only need to give up something seemingly intangible: his own soul. In that moment of encounter, an inexplicable breeze swept across the fields, making the few dried grasses shiver. Peter felt a chill run down his spine, understanding that this was not an ordinary meeting, but a moment that could define not only his personal destiny, but the future of his entire community. The mysterious traveler continued, detailing the benefits of his proposal with an eloquence that seemed to hypnotize. Each word was calculated to awaken Peter's deepest hopes: green fields, full barns, a fed family, a community saved from starvation. But behind Belphegor's seduction, Peter could sense something more, a nearly demonic presence indicating that the price would be much higher than just his individual soul. It would be the sacrifice of his integrity, his principles, everything that defined him as a human being. The silence between the two was dense, laden with possibilities and a confrontation that transcended the material world. Peter contemplated the stranger, feeling that his answer would determine not only his personal destiny, but the future of all whom he loved. In that decisive moment, the farmer understood that true wealth was not in momentary fertility or seductive promises, but in the strength of his faith, the resilience of his community, and the unyielding hope that remained firm even in the face of the harshest adversity. At the very moment when hope seemed to run out, Belphegor appeared like an almost ethereal apparition, his eyes shining with a supernatural intensity that contrasted with the aridity of the land. Clothed in dark garments that seemed to absorb the very light around them, he approached Peter with an enigmatic smile, carrying a promise that could completely transform the destiny of that community. The mysterious traveler needed to say little. His mere gaze already conveyed a tempting offer that would make any man in dire circumstances hesitate. Instant wealth, fertile fields, abundant harvests. All of this could be attained with a single gesture, a single agreement. But the cost would be Peter's soul, something that transcended any material transaction. Belphegor began to unfold his proposal in a soft and seductive voice, almost musical. Each word was like a thread of silk wrapping around Peter's thoughts, creating vivid images of prosperity. The dry fields would instantly transform into green and generous expanses. The barns would be filled with grain, and his family would never again know hunger. The offer was simple and straightforward. In exchange for his soul, Peter would receive not only momentary wealth, but a guarantee of perpetual abundance. His children could study, his wife would find comfort, and the entire community would benefit from his choice. Belphegor knew precisely how to touch the most sensitive points of an honest and devoted man's heart. As he spoke, the mysterious traveler revealed details that made Peter feel a shiver run down his spine. It would not just be a financial aid, but a complete transformation of his reality. The arid lands would become an oasis, the animals would regain their strength, and the village would rise from the ashes of drought like a terrestrial miracle. Peter felt his heart grow heavy. On one side, the urgent need to save his family and community. On the other, the value of his soul, something that went beyond any material wealth. His thoughts wandered between the responsibility to provide and the faith that sustained him in the toughest moments. The silence between Peter and Belphegor, was dense, charged with expectation. Each second felt like an eternity, each breath an unmade decision. The proposal hung in the air like a loaded cloud, poised to unleash its transformative or destructive essence. The choice before him was more than a mere pact. It was a definitive test of character, faith, and integrity. Peter realized in that moment that his decision would not only affect his life, but the destiny of all around him. Fortune was within reach, tantalizingly close, just a hand stretch away from acceptance of the imposed conditions. In Peter's journey, the search for answers led him to an internal and external pilgrimage, where each encounter and each story became a profound lesson in hope and resistance. Driven by the need to understand his dilemma, he began to visit the boldest villagers, people who carried the wisdom of decades of overcoming hardship in their eyes. First, he visited Mrs. Angelina, an elderly woman with white hair who had survived many droughts. Sitting on her small porch, she shared stories of even tougher times when the community had endured not through wealth, but through the strength of unity. Her eyes sparkled as she recounted moments when solidarity had turned scarcity into abundance. On another afternoon, Peter met Joseph, a farmer who had lost almost everything in a previous drought. Joseph revealed that his true wealth lay in the children he had raised, the values he imparted, and the inner peace he achieved. "Material wealth can be lost, son," he said, "but dignity and faith remain." Each narrative nurtured Peter's reflection. He realized that his struggle was not an individual one, but collective. The drought challenged them, but it also united them. In conversations with neighbors, he discovered that the true treasure was not in fertile land or full barns, but in the ties that connected them. His wife, Mary, always present and wise, observed him with love. Without judgment, she supported his inner quest, understanding that Peter needed to find his own truth. In their exchanged glances lay a profound companionship, an understanding that transcended words. Days passed and Peter delved deeper into his reflection. Belphegor's offer lingered in his mind like a tempting shadow, but the stories he heard fortified him. He understood that accepting the pact would mean not just losing his soul, but betraying all the values he had built. The village children, ever curious, watched him with admiration. They felt that something important was happening, a decision that could change everyone's fate. His silent example was already teaching them, showing that integrity has no price. In the silence of his reflections, Peter felt a deep connection with his ancestors. It seemed their voices whispered within him, reminding him that true heritage cannot be bought, negotiated. It is earned through work, love, and faith. Peter's journey was, in fact, a path of self-discovery. Each story heard, each glance exchanged, each moment of reflection prepared him for the final decision. He knew that his choice would define not only his personal destiny, but also the future of his entire community. The trial was far from over, but Peter felt stronger. His soul, once tormented by doubt, now found an almost divine clarity. And so, woven by stories of hope and resistance, he prepared to face the challenge that awaited him. The decisive moment arrived like a whisper laden with tension. Peter stood still, his eyes fixed on the enigmatic Belphegor, feeling the weight of the choice that would define not just his destiny, but that of his entire community. The drought had consumed their hopes, and now the devil in human form presented a proposal that could instantaneously transform their reality. The arid fields around seemed to hold their breath, expectant. Each grain of dry earth bore witness to the silent confrontation between the farmer and temptation. Belphegor smiled with calculated confidence, his eyes shining with a subtle malice that revealed a profound knowledge of human weaknesses. "You can have it all," Belphegor whispered, his voice like poisoned honey. "Green fields, barns stocked full, your family safe from misery. Just a simple agreement." The words lingered in the air, heavy as storm clouds, promising immediate relief in exchange for something intangible, yet infinitely precious. Peter felt his heart racing. Before him lay the possibility of saving his community, of seeing his children fed, his neighbors relieved from hunger's devastation. But this salvation would cost his soul, his deepest essence, his bond with everything he held sacred. He recalled his grandfather's words, "Son, true wealth cannot be bought or negotiated. It dwells in the heart of those who maintain their dignity." These memories were like anchors, preventing him from being swept away by the current of temptation. Peter's eyes traveled across the arid landscape, every inch of land he had cultivated with love and dedication. He looked beyond the momentary dryness, understanding that true fertility did not come from diabolical pacts, but from persistence, faith, and community unity. In a slow, almost solemn movement, Peter lifted his face to Belphegor. His expression radiated serene determination. There was no fear, no hesitation, only the clarity of one who knows his true value. "No," he replied firmly, "my soul is not for sale. Our community will overcome this trial through work, faith, and unity." The silence that followed was more eloquent than any word. Belphegor, defeated, began to fade like a shadow, while on the horizon the first clouds laden with rain began to form. The choice was made. Peter had chosen faith over fortune, dignity over ease, communal love over individual gain, and in that moment, unbeknownst to him, he had planted the seed of true transformation. After rejecting the pact with Belphegor, Peter felt a profound inner transformation. His eyes, once burdened with worry, now sparkled with a renewed light of hope. The decision to keep his faith intact, even in the face of the most challenging adversity, had released in him an almost inexplicable strength. Suddenly, the once arid and relentless sky began to change. Dense, heavy clouds formed rapidly, in a movement that seemed almost orchestrated by a divine symphony. The first drops of rain gently fell upon the cracked earth, like tears of joy healing the wounds of the drought. The community, which had previously watched the desolate scene with empty eyes of hope, began to awaken to a new moment. Children ran out of their houses, extending their hands to feel the water they had long awaited. The older men and women, teary-eyed, embraced one another, recognizing the miracle they were witnessing. Peter remained motionless at the center of the field, allowing each drop to envelop him. His shirt quickly soaked, but he did not care. Each drop represented more than water. It symbolized the victory of faith over temptation, community over individualism, love over greed. The fields, once dry and barren, began to come back to life. The first green leaves sprouted from the dormant seeds, as if awakening from a long nightmare. The animals, who had lost all hope, began to moo and cluck, celebrating the rebirth. Mary, his wife, approached Peter and held his calloused hand. Without needing to say a word, they understood each other deeply. They had chosen the harder path, but the truest one. Their union, based on principles and faith, proved stronger than any material temptation. The rain continued, now more intense. It was as though the heavens were washing not only the earth but the souls of those inhabitants. Each drop seemed to carry a message of renewal, that hope always prevails when nourished by integrity and belief in values greater than personal interests. In the following days, the village transformed completely. The fields yielded a harvest, more abundant than in previous years. The community, strengthened by the shared experience, developed even deeper bonds of solidarity. Peter had become not only a leader, but a symbol of resistance and integrity. Peter's story spread quickly, becoming a local legend, not as a tale of individual heroism, but as a testament to the power of communal faith, the strength that emerges when the collective good is chosen over personal gain. His journey inspired generations, reminding everyone that true wealth cannot be bought, but built with love, respect, and dedication. Peter's story reveals that true riches transcend material possessions. His courageous choice demonstrates that integrity and faith are invaluable treasures. By rejecting the temptation of fortune, he proves that love, community, and spiritual values are the true legacies we can leave behind, inspiring generations with his simple yet profound wisdom.